I get started, I just want to recognise the traditional owners of the land. We're actually in multiple places. I wish I had the list of all the tribes that are represented by everybody that's participating, but unfortunately I don't, but I will endeavour to do that next time. So I really do acknowledge elders past and present and the continuing community's commitment to the land. So we have an absolute jam-packed agenda today, and I really do want to thank everybody that's here. So one of the things that we've got first up, and essentially the theme of today's session is an opportunity with thanks to TIQ, who have been really supportive of the cluster and the ongoing, I guess, marketing and support of the visibility, because that's one of our major, I guess, challenges, is the visibility of the companies within the cluster, and that's one of our absolute major focuses. And this cluster muster is definitely focused on trying to raise that awareness. So one of the key themes, and there's going to be a couple of events coming up over the course of the next few months. Actually, we've got till the end of the year a really jam-packed I guess, series of events, which I'll talk a bit about later. But today's about an opportunity with Saudi Arabia. And one of the things that's happening thanks to COVID is that it's really shaken everybody's, I guess, realization of what is the new normal. And Saudi is no different. And so most of you may have well been aware of the Giga projects that have been underway. The other thing that is also an opportunity is the Expo 2020, which has been deferred to next year. So even though they're still calling it Expo 2020, it's really Expo 2021. But there's a real opportunity for Queensland to play a significant role in that. And so that's what has triggered Jeffrey Shoecraft, who is the senior advisor to the Middle East, and in particular to the Trade Commissioner over there. And the key thing that Jeffrey, and we've got a real opportunity with Jeffrey, is that he is stuck here in Australia. He typically lives in Dubai, and he's stuck here. Unfortunately, it would have been great to have him here, physically, but unfortunately we don't have that opportunity. So he is online. Unfortunately, he is on a very not a very good connection. So he's asked me to actually run through his presentation. So I'm sure I'm going to get a kick under the table if I say anything that's out of turn, Jeffrey. But I really do want to thank you for this opportunity. And those of you who don't know Jeffrey, he has a really interesting background and has been involved in the music industry. I do implore you to look up his LinkedIn post and have a look at some of the achievements that he's made over his career. But he's with his role in Saudi, he's actually a very outspoken person and promoting Queensland significantly. So one of the key things that he wants to do is to make sure that out of the Expo 2020, that Queensland is definitely a major showcase piece, and that we really blow everybody's socks off. So that's one key thing that he's got us thinking about. And it's going to be a combination. We're sort of talking about a combination of robotics, AI, bionics, immersive technologies, a whole range of capabilities that we can demonstrate, all from the ecosystems that are here in Queensland, and as well as bringing the rest of Australia along on the journey. But the other thing is these Giga projects. And so I'll quickly go through, for those of you who haven't seen these Giga projects, I'll quickly run through. Let me I had it on full screen and then it's gone off. So the Giga projects are major sort of investment sort of strategies, and so part of the acceleration that's happening is that the Saudi government has recognised that there's a real need to move quickly. The COVID has definitely shone a light on society there, and so there's a real need to accelerate these things. And I'll touch on some of them that have already, some components have already been awarded. So this is all about sort of a strategy. Saudi are definitely ones alongside China and some of the other countries around the world where they definitely have a future strategy, and they work towards that future strategy, as well as continually revising that and looking at what's possible. So one of the things that they're looking at doing is essentially, significant change. They're realizing that oil is not is going to continue at the same rate with the level of electrification that's happening, and so they've been well aware of that for many years, and so they've been growing these other kingdoms. Their resource kingdom under Madden and other major companies is growing significantly. Tourism is definitely a major component of that, but there's a whole range of transformations that they're looking at doing, and so these projects kind of exemplify those key changes. So the key Giga projects, we've got, and I won't get these pronunciations right, Jeffrey. So again, that's another kick under the table if I get them wrong. But the Quidia, which is focused on tourism, so very much taking advantage of the landscape. It is hot there, so keep that in mind. But they're really looking at that tourism piece. Amala is really focusing on the ecotourism, and they're doing some really interesting things about sustainability on that project. NEOM is, as it says there, everything. It's sort of like really trying to exemplify what the future city could look like. The Red Sea project, again, is one on tourism, and the Red Sea is an amazing location. And then you've got Minsk, which is around stimulating the entrepreneur and innovation. So from a perspective of robotics, there's opportunities all the way through, as I'll describe. So going into the first one, so it's a huge sort of arts and sports and entertainment sort of a project. There is an investment company, and they've actually started work. So they've issued, I think, the airport contract, and there's another one of the major construction projects in the process of being awarded. So they've already started this process, but there's a whole raft of opportunities here. So here, the initial, I guess, opportunity is around construction robotics, potentially on the health and safety, emergency response. As we know, construction can be quite a dangerous environment, so that's also probably a key aspect. But it's also ramping up for a bunch of other opportunities. There's a number of zones, entertainment. So this is where the immersive technologies can come in alongside robotics. So there's, I think, some real synergies there. With the residential zones and some of these other areas, I think there's a whole raft of opportunities with regards to delivery, automatic delivery, and other, I guess, services, rubbish removal, rubbish recycling, rubbish sorting, all of those sort of key things around the residential piece. And they're really interested in those types of capabilities. Surveillance and policing, obviously, or security, I guess is a better way, is also another key opportunity. So as you can see, there's going to be a lot of hotels and a lot of sort of capability. Hopefully, by that stage, people will be comfortable traveling. I think it's far enough away that they should be able to. But there could also be, and this is a conversation that's been happening around safe, I guess, vacationing. And so things like cleaning, sterilization, and a whole range of applications of robotics can come into play. With the hotels, the service robots and automation around that, I think, is also key. And then around the sports facilities, I think there's some interesting opportunities with regards to training and media and a whole range of other opportunities. Then we can go to Amala. So Amala is meant to be this ultra luxe eco-tourism capability, but they've got a major piece on sustainability. And so there's opportunities here to really highlight the place that robotics has in that space of sustainability. So whether it's monitoring, whether it's a whole range of aspects with regards to sustainability, treading lightly, looking after the ecosystem. So there's some opportunities with that. It is in a great location, great coast, again hot, but this is where some of the subsea robotic solutions could potentially come into play with regards to sensing and maintenance, but also in the construction phase. They're super interested in some of the work that's happened on the Great Barrier Reef with regards to tourism, with regards to the art projects and so forth. So there's some opportunities there, especially for companies like Artemis and others up that way. So again, but there's also villages, there's also hotels. So the same from the previous project that applies here. Neom City is the Everlink city, pretty much, which is really, so this ties into the smart cities concept, very much so. So I think there's a huge opportunity here. There's definitely going to be, and those of you who know about the flying cars and taxis that are happening in the Middle East, this is where some of those things are going to be happening. So, controlled airspace, a lot of drones, a lot of delivery, a lot of other capabilities are going to be probably manifest themselves here, along with a range of other opportunities. In terms of location, it's just north of Jeddah, but again, it's in a really interesting sort of location. So, but the other piece that the Saudi government wants to do is really showcase what's possible. They're very big into futures thinking and realization, so they're going to be really driving. So any company that's able to deliver solutions in these areas, I think, is going to be well received. I think, ultimately a smart city built from the ground up. The Red Sea project, this is another one which has probably got a heavy aqua piece to it. And again, it's a tourist destination. So all of those previous statements around tourism, as well as the aquatic applications, sort of play a role here. This is taking advantage again of some of the coastline and the islands that are in the vicinity, and the area is already a bit of a destination, so they're sort of taking advantage of that. So again, hotels and so forth. Transports and are also another area, so that's going to be a interesting, whether it's from boats and the aerial piece. So I think the flying car / autonomous boats sort of ties into the sort of that aspect. Now, Minsk is an interesting, so it's already started. There's already Queensland companies, and I was amiss to get the list of some of the companies on there. So I'll find out and let everybody know what are some of the companies that are already winning contracts, so that we can potentially have a talk to them. But this is really around the innovation and entrepreneur program. One of the things that we've been talking about with Jeffrey and others is the potential for sister hubs and sister capabilities. So whether we could get to a point where we have a sister robotics cluster in Saudi, this would be the place that it could be based. Whether we have a robotics hub or a sister to the ARM hub, this is probably the place where it could be, similar to the AI hub and the XR hub. This is most likely going to be the place for that. So I think that's a really good, this is probably the most immediate opportunity, but then all of the other opportunities I think are also equally as immediate. Now, in terms of the steps forward, the idea with this meeting is to provide some material that Jeffrey can use to sort of put together some material, but also there's going to be a series of hopefully some workshops around some key deliverables or key packages of work that are already being identified. And so we're going to look at how we can respond to those packages of work as a collective, and sort of really be impactful. And there's also potential for pulling in some of our other partners, namely Silicon Valley Robotics, Odence, Robo Valley, and Mass Robotics, and the Pittsburgh Technology Council. So I think it's not just about what we can do, but it's what we can do with our partners as well. So with that, I think I'm more or less on time-ish. So I'll just see if there's any questions. Please use the chat to jump on and put any questions. I can't see any Q&A at the moment. But just in terms of the panelists, is there any questions from you guys before we move on to Prethi? And I take that as a no. So that means that's fine. We are going to have some Q&A later on. In the fact that we've got a full agenda, I'm going to... So Prethi, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If not, please correct me. So I want to introduce Prethi. He's with the Central Queensland University, and they're again one of our key institutions. And I do want to sort of highlight the fact that here in Queensland, we've probably got the most number of robotics and automation related courses at an academic level, and hopefully soon we'll have a similar sort of claim on the VET courses. So anyway, I'll like to invite Prethi to give us an overview of CQU and the programs that you guys are running. Now you can share your screen if you've got any slides. I'll just stop sharing. And then you should be able to share.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. Thanks. My name is Prethi. Full name is so long, so just call me Prethi. I'm the head of Mechatronics department, or in CQB we call it the disciplines. And I will give you an introduction to our mechatronics program and what we have done so far and what kind of graduates we produce. So the background of developing this program based on mainly on the industry feedback. So from our industry forums and industry network, plus our students who are going to the industry for 2 placements if they are in a core program. That means it's kind of a work integrated learning. They have 2 placements in the industry during their undergrad. The feedback from them also helped us to make the decision. So we decided to launch a new mechatronics program. And it's not easy to develop a new program which could be marketable and will produce the graduates for the industry with the current industry needs. What we did was we studied and analyzed most of the curriculums in Australian universities in this area, mechatronics engineering area. Then identified the skills gap which the industry is looking for, basically the practical side. Then we designed the CQB Mechatronics course addressing those issues. And then after doing that one, we applied for the accreditation. As you know, any engineering course need to be accredited by Engineers Australia for the graduates to be working in the industry as recognized engineers. So we obtained the provisional accreditation. That's the first step. Usually for any new course, it's the provisional accreditation. You don't get the full accreditation at the beginning. Once our graduates join the industry, then in the next round, they interview the graduates, the industry, and so on, then the full accreditation. We are in that phase now. 2 batches have already graduated, and for the next round, we apply for the full accreditation. In the accreditation round, we obtained their recommendations, and then we applied them. We addressed the issues to close the loop, and we hope that we have done enough to get the full accreditation in the next round. So if I move on to the Mechatronics Labs, from the practical point of view, we do have all the state-of-the-art electrical and power electronics experimental benches like these. Like these ones, and process control benches with PLC control and all. Then different robots, Baxter, Robotino, and sets of industry standard product simulation lines. It's basically part of actual product line. It's a Festo gear. So students will program these PLC controlled modules and get the hands-on experience before joining the industry, so that they get a real taste of what happens there. Not only that, we do have other things from the feedback from Engineers Australia. One recommendation was to address the hands-on skills in current engineering graduates, not only from CQU, from all the Australian universities. That's an issue. So we try to get our TAFE, because we are in better position compared to some of the other universities, because we do have a TAFE within our university system. So we try to get that one incorporated into our curriculum, but there are challenges. So workshop facilities and OHS is one of the bigger things, and complexity of enrolling undergrads into TAFE. So the fee structures and things are different. So the solution, we designed some learning activities without getting them directly enrolled as TAFE students. We get the TAFE staff to deliver these things. And this is one of the snapshot of these are our students doing under these TAFE teachers. They get the hands-on part completed in their residential schools or the lab practical time. These are a couple of other examples of our students doing the practical things. This is one of the third year projects. It's a human hand imitating robotic hand. This is one of the group members, and this is one of our tech staff testing that. And this one is again another student project. This autonomous cleaning robot. This is the actual one made by the group, and it is fully autonomous. So I don't have time, otherwise I could have showed you a video. This one is another project. All these PCB designs and everything done by the student, as is one of the final year project. He made his own quadcopter, and the chip used was a very much new one, and it was from Texas Instruments, and you can find this project in Texas Instruments website as an exemplar project. And this one, another project, two-legged walking robot. This one is another industry project that is with the Gladstone Port Corporation. You know how complex the ship loading is. You need to load each chamber of the ship equally, otherwise you will break the ship into two. If you get an imbalance, so you're loading thousands of tons of coal to each chamber. In Gladstone, it is really difficult to see it with the gloomy weather conditions in most of the time. So we established a LiDAR system to map it. So that will help the ship loader to identify the profiles, and that's in operation now. And this is another one, not only resource industry, we work with health industry as well. So this is one of the final year projects last year, one of my students did for a prosthetic hand. She developed this sensor glove and operated a simulated hand from that. And these are the kind of things that we do. It's basically a more practical based course than the conventional ones, but it is really, really challenging to fit in all these new things into an engineering course, but somehow we managed with our project-based learning units. So most of our students getting very good opportunities in the industry and the industry people. The feedback we are getting from the industry is so fabulous that the graduates work very well in the industry. I think I'm on time, and that's it. And if you have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Preeti. Any questions? Please use the Q&A, or if you're on the panel, you can just unmute yourself and answer and ask a question. I've got one quick question, Preeti, just because of a project that I'm involved in. You don't happen to have any interaction with the medical side, and in particular around exoskeletons at all?
Last year we had one of the students working, but couldn't complete the whole project because of the time limitations. But we are working on that area as well.
Okay, we do have a question from Sam Bradley. You're unmuted, you can go ahead.
Hi, here's my microphone, okay?
Yep.
Preeti, you mentioned that you've got the students going through some vocational training for practical skills. What particular skills did you identify as useful for mechatronics grads?
Programming is one of them, and hands-on skills on basic tools and basic power tools kind of things is another one. And then getting further experience on programming industrial robots or similar ones would be very much of advantage, because these days a lot of industries getting industrial robots, and it's real lack of trained people for running and maintaining them. That's one of the opportunities for the students too.
So this would be G code sort of programming, or C for embedded systems?
We use C.
Okay.
And for the robots, we use ROS and Python.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you, Preeti.
Question?
Yeah, sure.
So at Lyro, we have close relationships with QUT and Griffith, and we take a lot of their fourth year students on for final year projects as well as work integrated learning. Just curious, what's the sort of structure for yours? So QUT, in our experience, is separated work integrated learning and final year projects, where Griffith is taking another approach where if they can find an industry partner that is willing to do a project, they can lump in their work integrated learning 60 days. And so that becomes a lot more beneficial for us as a company, because they become essentially a full-time worker for a single semester and are able to really dive into a project. Just curious what your sort of structure is on that.
In CQU, for the core students, they go for work placements in 2 separate semesters. So basically, the first semester, they are going after 2 years, that means third year first term. The second placement in fourth year last term, second term. So most of the time, they don't come back. That's a real scenario. The industry allow them, and they just don't send them back. They get the job.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Excellent. Rightio. Well, we're going to move on now. So next up, we've got Brody from UFR. So Brody, if you want to share your screen. So UFR, or for those that don't know, the acronym Universal Field Robotics, is doing some really interesting work in the mining space, but also have been working in the construction as well as in the agricultural space with picking of avocados, right, Brody?
Oh yeah, we did do that. It's on a bit of a back burner at the moment because most of our interest has come from mining because they're really pushing all that stuff. But yeah, we got our space in that and solar farm construction.
Excellent.
Yeah. Can everyone hear me fine? Is that all right?
Yep, loud and clear. So over to you.
Yep, awesome. Thank you. Yep, so my name's Brody. I'm an engineer here at Universal Field Robots. And what we do is as you can see in the background, we create robotics, outdoor robotics, specifically for the mining and construction industry, those industries that have dangerous environments. And that's where we find that we can best operate. So our company has been running for just over 4 years now, and it was started by Jeff Sterling. He has 25 years engineering experience running his own company. So right now we've got a lot of experience in the mining industry. We're operating internationally in Chile and Australia here on mines, and we do our manufacturing in Australia. All this talk will be about mining specifically because that's where we have a lot of our experience currently, and that's where a lot of our interest has come from. But obviously a lot of this easily transitions over to construction and stuff like avocado picking. So coming out of mining perspective and also construction perspective, what we've seen is that there's been a real focus on safety, and you got a lot of these situations where there's a lot of hazards, and companies are really focused on removing them from this situation. Mining, of course, recently because of COVID have started implementing skeleton crews, so they're only getting the minimal amount of people in to keep everything running and just trying to reduce the amount of people there. And of course, in these industries like construction and mining, there's a lot of repetitive tasks. And when you have repetitive tasks with human error, you get a lot of variable quality. And that's a space that robots can really help because they're great at doing the same things over and over very well. And that's where we feel like we come in, because we can get these people out of these dangerous situations into an office where they can still operate with maximum efficiency. So just talking about a solution. So what we have is what we call UFR Autonomy, which is a stack of software, sensors, and our own machinery, and our own machine components. And what we do is we apply that to mass produced construction equipment. So for instance, here we have the Cat 2-ton excavator. So we combine those together, and what we get is our autonomous or remotely operated UFR platform. And this stack works so well because it's flexible, because we can change what construction equipment we apply this to. So it's flexible to each situation. If a customer comes to us, preferably wanting a different machine, we can just whack that on and it'll work with little effort. You've got the base machine there, so it keeps the cost low. And these are equipment that, say, mining construction have been using for decades, and they trust them, so it's reliable. So here is just a short video. This is a proposal we did for a mine in Chile, just showing what I mean by being very flexible. So this was for drill bit replacement. So it's that same excavator E20C with a different attachment on the end that we designed. And that's the only thing that changes there. So we just got a different attachment with the same software stack. And it's able to do this task that obviously it would be too dangerous for a human to get involved with. And it does this using its base autonomous stack. So it's got autonomous driving and perception. So it's very reliable and robust. Yeah, so that was a proposal we did. So talking about the UFR autonomy stack that we like onto these machines. So we've got autonomous driving, which allows it to drive through and avoid objects and rough terrain efficiently. We got perception, so it's able to see its targets and goals and execute its tasks. You've got auto decision making, so it's just saying it's able to make its own decisions and problem solve its tasks to achieve its goals. And then we got the human machine interface, so that allows operators to be in that remote destination, the office or whatever, out of the mine, and be able to successfully and efficiently monitor and operate their vehicle. So I was talking about platforms, and we had the Cat 2 ton there, but we also have 2 other platforms now. So we got the Kubota ATV and the Bobcat as well. And we like to think of it as like a Swiss Army knife approach. So you've got these base machines, which is the Swiss Army knife, like the Cat or the Kubota, but they're able to do all these different tasks. And just an example of this is for the E20C. These are some of the tasks that we've been doing. So as we talked about before, we got the drill bit replacement. We're also working on a haul truck refueling machine. So this machine is able to sit just off the side of the haul roads, and they can pull in it'll detect the fuel nozzle and fuel it up, and we're aiming for in under 5 minutes so they can get on going. There's also a mobile radio node. We're doing this for, I think, in South Africa, I believe it is. So this node has radio equipment. It also has a wireless mesh network, and what it's able to do is follow the drills around and provide them with constant radio and connections. And then we've also got charge up, sensing and cleaning of blast holes underground. Just to show that it's also not all about the excavator, we got the Kubota ATV, which can also operate as that radio node. But a key focus of this is also going to be able to fetch and deliver things. So you can send this off and come and collect equipment and bring it back to the... Talking about our success, one of our biggest successes has been with Imdex. So they're a sensing company, and what they created was this sensor for sensing blast holes and collecting on benches and collecting important information from them. But when they ask mines, they say, oh, no, there's no way we're going to let humans do that, because they have to carry I think it's a 30-kilogram tool, lean over a blast hole, chuck it down there. You've got mining equipment all around. It's 40 degrees on the bench. They're like, there's no way to do it. So what happened is Imdex came to us, and they were like, oh, what can you do for us? So we were able to take their idea and get to a commercial product in under a year. And now it's operating in mines in Chile and Australia. And we're saving them about 30 to 40%. It's been a real success story, and we're able to get the ideation to product, I think prototype, I think it was in about 3 months. So we got that quick turnaround because we're using this same machine and just able to quickly manufacture a tool for the specified tasks. So just to give you a timeline on where we are and where we're going. So like I said, we were founded in 2016. We have an MVP in 2017, so we're moving quite quick. We did a presentation for CIRA in 2018, and then we were able to get a commercial product with Imdex. The sale is called Blast Dog. And 2020 currently, we're working on the fueling machine, working on the ATV, and defining our UFR autonomy and building that up a bit better. But 2021, we're looking to expand and get more products out there. But yeah, that was everything I had. Thank you.
Excellent. I was just about to give you a hurry up, so well done. Good timing.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, Joe, over to you. So Joe Cronin's with, I guess, moving along on the mining theme. Joe has extensive experience in the mining sector, in particular underground. He's probably one of the world leaders in underground automation. We're very fortunate for him to be based here in Queensland. So over to you, Joe.
Andrew, you've got my slides.
Ah, right. Aha, okay. Little...
So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Very exciting. To the dream of of starting a city from scratch that's built for robotics and built to take advantage of technology is a dream that the world's been talking about, and it's great to see that that's actually happening. So while the slides are coming up, Australian Droid and Robot, difficult to describe us. We're basically a technology company. We have a lot of experience. Our background is in complex technical project management. So 20 years since the Olympic opening ceremony, I did the project management on that plane for Sydney. We've done work in the defence industry, incorporating robotics, weapons platforms, and then we moved into the mining industry. So between us, we delivered the first fully autonomous mine at North Parks in 2013, where 100% of the level production is coming from autonomous machines, and that's still running today. We've just completed a project in Africa for the last 2 years, automating a mine, a gold mine in Syama. How are you going, Andrew? We're here. So from our mining work, we recognised there was a need for small robotics in a number of applications: search and rescue, defence, and mining. So we work in aerospace. We've got half of the company produces drones and fixed-wing platforms that fit between the lower end of the fence. Back, please, Andrew. Between the lower end of the fence and the upper end of what's available in the consumer market. And our core skill is really the ability to rapidly integrate sensors onto a number of robotic platforms and to deliver a solution. Next slide, please, Andrew. So I guess the main thing Australian Droid and Robot has to offer is capability. We have some very, very clever people working with us. I've introduced Andrew, you've introduced me. Dr. David Preller is a rocket scientist. David runs the aerospace side of the business, and that can be anything from underground drones to fixed wing, high speed ISR, sorry, inspection, search and rescue, fixed wing platforms that are able to be deployed very quickly and cover large areas. Matt Allen is our perception and artificial intelligence manager. So Matt has an enormous amount of experience in delivering autonomous vehicles system for mobile fleet automation solutions. And he's also an expert in artificial intelligence, spelt beautifully there, machine learning and machine vision. And Matt certainly, once we delivered the platforms, we needed someone to deliver payloads, and Matt's done a great job doing that. So next slide, please, Andrew. So in terms of capability, we have expertise and experience in robotics, artificial intelligence, engineering, software, aerospace, industrial design and weapon systems. We have a team of electronic, mechanical, software engineers where we work in an agile development framework, a rapid prototyping framework. So we're very quickly able to deliver solutions for rapid and urgent requirements needs. Next slide, please, Andrew. So again, the aerospace side of the business, we have vertical takeoff platforms, multi-rotor platforms, long-range fixed-wing platforms, all suited to given applications, all able to be fitted with a range of sensors. So things like security, area surveillance. We're working with QUT at the moment to put machine learning on some of our fixed-wing platforms so that they can actually identify lost humans in remote areas. Next slide, please, Andrew. So ground platforms, we have a number of our own ground platforms that we've developed over many years to be able to be used mainly in the underground mining industry. Most of our platforms are too human portable, which means they can sit in the back of a truck or the back of a van, and they can be easily deployed. Again, they can be fitted with a range of sensors. We'll see next slide that we've got autonomous platform. They can autonomously navigate in unstructured environments. And what we've done recently is a lot of work in navigation in GPS denied environments. So Matt's done a lot of work with machine learning and segmentation, where the vehicles are able purely through vision to determine what's drivable terrain and what's not drivable terrain, and then follow a path, which is useful in search and rescue in remote areas, bushland. But we've also developed our own navigation package, which works off, which takes advantage of some of the technology that's been developed for the autonomous car industry. So all of this is platform independent, and we're working with a number of companies at the moment in terms of, we have a project where we're looking at mowing lawns, mowing grass under large solar plants autonomously. And we're also looking at disinfecting shopping centres overnight using high power ultraviolet lights. So again, there's the payload, the autonomous payload capability, and the platform capability, and the integration capability. Next slide, please, Andrew. So as previously discussed, one of our great capabilities is in the design, specification, technical project management and delivery of complex technology solutions. As we've got engineers with experience in delivery of such solutions, from communications to electrical distribution to data management. We've done a lot of work in remote operating centres, which I guess in terms of the smart cities is probably the most applicable capability we have. We understand how to set up remote operating centres, how to specify and scope them, and then we have a network of international partners we work with to deliver them. That bottom control room was delivered in Mali, in West Africa, using local tradesmen and suppliers. So last slide, please, Andrew. So our company motto is safety by separation. With the advance in remote systems and autonomous systems, there's a new control in the hierarchy of controls, which I think is more powerful than engineering or administration solutions. By separating people from hazards, having the operators located in a comfortable control room and away from the hazard, it's a control that even when that control breaks down, the hazard and the operators are still separated. And that's really what drives our company, is removing people from danger and allowing them to execute their tasks remotely using the technologies that are becoming available. And as we always say, you can always replace a robot. Humans are harder to replace. That's us. Thank you. Questions?
Any questions for Joe? Please use the Q&A, or if you're on the panel, you can unmute. So thank you very much, Joe. So we'll move on to Sean, who has a bit of a mining bent, but mainly emergency services and I guess security and military. So over to you, Sean. You can share your screen.
Yeah, so one thing we did there for Rio Tinto sort of approach us, they had a pain point on the mine sites there of large, really dangerous fires. So we came up with the ATR fire robot. which really gave Rio and other mining organisations now the ability to respond, assess and act safely. So again, removing that human from danger was the main pain point for Rio. Just next slide, thanks Andrew. Other capabilities we've done, and we've done these in collaboration with some great partners and industry partners locally here in Australia. So CSIRO, you know, have used our robot as part of their subterranean data challenge, and we now integrate and use their Wildcat SLAM system on our platforms. And we've done a number of other smaller platforms based around inspections, again, emergency response, negotiations. And we've adapted Blueprint Lab, a company out of Sydney, their robotic arm and interface system onto our smaller platform. Next slide. We are the OEM of the Warfighter UGV, so this is a sovereign capability that we're doing here in Australia with a couple of other Australian defence companies, Cyborg Dynamics and EOS being wonderful supporters. So this unit is currently in Townsville and operations with the Australian Army, and then later in the month we'll be down in New South Wales shooting 50 calibre from this actual unit. Next slide. So the Warfighter will come in a number of variants, so as part of Land 125 and 154 defence projects. So we'll fulfil the roles of a CASEVAC with patient care, logistics, carrying up, you know, depending on the configuration, between 250 and 400 kilo payload, multi-role ISR, and the assault variant, as I mentioned, shooting up to 50 cal. Next slide. We work closely with a number of the special operations units within Australia, and also the policing tactical units to produce a number of shield lights, you know, and really teaming that with modern day fighting equipment such as NVGs. Next slide. The team, I'm super lucky, surrounded by an amazing team. We've got from federal intelligence agencies, policing, army, tactical and covert policing backgrounds, and a couple of PhD level engineers, and all with that, you know, really good connection to what customers want and need, and, you know, and delivery in, you know, really good turnaround, short time frames. Next slide. Again, our customers that we continue to work with. So I mentioned CSIRO Data 61, JPL, NASA also use our platform as part of their subterranean challenge in the US, you know, to autonomously navigate in those GPS denied environments. I mean, they're really hard technical sort of field environments, so they're using that base platform to integrate their software suite onto. Australian Army, I mentioned, with the sovereign capability of the Warfighter, Rio Tinto with the firefighting robots, and a number of the police forces around Australia. Next slide. So I'll just play this video. It'll just highlight, you know, I guess, examples and show some of the training that in this first video that the Rio Tinto superintendents have put this together on their use cases and why they needed the platform to respond. So the first sort of image here has got an oxyacetylene fire, and just showing the remote presence of being able to change those spray patterns to deal with it. This highlights this was actually part of the testing over at JPL NASA. That's on the Mars sandpit, and how the unit had to perform to sort of get their tick of approval. Again, back to Rio Tinto, so now just changing that automated spray pattern from jet, fog and stream, you know, it allows them either to approach or render safe. So it's just a building fire there to make approach and deal with that. It'll now it'll roll over to another video shortly. So just following here, so this is our Ausbot Mark 8. So this is our smallest track platform, recently integrated that Blueprint Lab robotic arm, as I mentioned. and we sort of went one step further, and they've got a really good master arm controller that you see there. So we've integrated the complete drive system into that master arm, just so there's one user interface, you know, to allow that operation. So this was just some training that we did. There's a particular pain point that one of the miners had, and needed to, you know, insert a key into a keyway in order to render safe a particular piece of equipment. So that was just training the team on that capability. And again, it's, you know, we've really simplified it down with that master arm controller, you know, to be, you know, that user-friendly, you know, in critical incidences. It's very important that we're not, you know, overbearing the cognitive load on the end user. So you can see the examples here of a small inspection robot, but yeah, it's a multiplier of use cases with that robotic arm. This last part of the video here is this actually Queensland Police Tactical Unit run a number of these robots, and they're, you know, I like to think of them as a large hammer. You know, they're used for, you know, traversing rough terrain, but then also gaining entry into fortified buildings or strongholds, as the tactical police call them. And that's, you know, generally to get entry and or to commence negotiations with persons who are barricaded and unwilling to talk. It's designed fit for purpose. You know, it's a harsh environment that it lives in. It's expected to work and operate first time. And, you know, when they send it forward to open a door, they really expect it to do its role. So we're very proud of the work we've done with the Queensland Police and to produce, you know, that capability for them. You can see, you know, that it is adaptable. So that's using, you know, the jaws there, and that'll be, you know, they've used a number of times to disable vehicles, you know, open the backs of cars, you know, does, yeah, as needed. But again, that's a very fit for purpose tool. So I think last slide, Andrew. So that's pretty much us. You know, again, we're a very proud Australian SME. Love to collaborate with other companies, and yeah, thank you. If you need any more information, feel free to reach out. Stay safe. That's it.
Thank you, Sean. That's fantastic. I'll see if we've got any questions. We do have a question, I think. Oh no, that was just the chat coming up. I'll just stop my share and allow Amanda to get set up. One quick comment though, or statement is just so for everybody's awareness, and for those who haven't tuned into the podcast we did with Sean and Justin, BI5 or BAI is actually built in Australia. That's the where it comes from. So very proud local manufacturers of robotics. So we're super proud, and I could use your platform, Sean, to move some rocks around my property. So I need to have a chat to you later.
Yeah, that's exactly what Justin does with it.
Excellent. So now we're moving on to Freelance Robotics, which is probably a really amazing company, and we are so lucky to have Amanda sort of take us through who they are. But they're in so many different areas and are in contact with a lot of suppliers all over the world, and have been delivering service and helping industry here in Southeast Queensland for many years. I think I first met William back in, must be at least 15 years ago or around that time. So really glad to have Freelance on board. So over to you, Amanda.
Thank you. So my name is Amanda White, and I'm the General Manager at Freelance Robotics. Now today I'm really proud to bring you an overview of our company, specializing on 4 specific areas that I want to demonstrate our capabilities. Now, you're going to find that our slideshow today is quite text heavy. The reason for that is because I wanted to provide as much information as possible whilst not being overbearing on our time use. So please feel free as I go just to read through, and I'm really happy to take your questions at the end. Now, Freelance Robotics is an established engineering company that brings together industry and research and development knowledge. We develop faster, more reliable new systems and products. Our business specializes in developing prototypes from the idea stage through to market-ready products. Freelance Robotics is also established in factory automation with our industrial robotics division, which I'm very proud to show you in just one moment. Our company is confident of achieving a custom solutions-focused result because we're working across such a varied amount of industries for such a long time. Now that includes agriculture, smart cities, mining, hospitality and services. And you can see here that I've overviewed our engineering skill set, and in fact we're going to look at that in some more detail in just a moment. Now, as I mentioned, I wanted to show you our capabilities snapshot, and we're going to start looking at R&D, our research and development system, our prototyping team. The reason we're starting there is because this is really the way the company brought itself forth into the market. We're working originally quite closely with startups and entrepreneurs who are looking to either develop a product for commercial use or potentially to add something to an existing company, not for sale out of house, but for use in-house, perhaps in a manufacturing concern. Now, the amount of work that we've done has produced a range of products. And as Andrew mentioned, we are repping and distributing products for other companies. There's a range of them we'll go through in quite some detail. And then we have our new industrial robotics division. And I want to overview some of our very exceptional smart cities projects for you today as well. Now, when it comes to research and development, this can mean transforming new concepts or improving existing products through customization. For research teams, we are developing prototypes adapted to experimental research needs. For independent clients, we are transforming ideas to a prototype that you can patent and or sell. And for industrial businesses, that's customized automation. And we can really improve cost effectiveness, efficiency, and minimize occupational health and safety risks. Depending on the target industry, we help you source manufacturers, investors, and engineering companies to convert the prototype from a proof of concept to a product. I'm not going to go through any specific products at this point. You can see I'm overviewing services. And the reason for that is because the majority, if not all of our prototypes are covered by non-disclosure agreements. And also we have a range of products that are in the development stage under patent law. So I'd like to highlight to you today just the range of skills that our engineers can bring to your potential product development. The reason that we have such a wide scope and such a strongly developed history of product development is because of our engineering team's skill set. If you imagine the interaction between these kinds of skills, the level of products that we're developing from prototyping stage, it's not a big surprise that we're covering so many industries. Our model is a scalable commercial model, which means that we are interested in working for you, our customer, and developing the product that you most want to bring to market. We're extremely diligent in the way that we attend to customer needs, and we have a very specific project clarity component. Our company has created a specific process to mitigate the risks of prototyping, as well as manufacturing conversion. In brief, any project begins with a feasibility study that provides detailed time and cost estimates, which are separated into milestones with forecasted return on investment. And in this way, the customers start with a clear budget and timeline. Process transparency and clear communication underline our client focus. Project handover includes training, plus ongoing maintenance and support services that are available, but it really depends on the customer. Not everybody is looking for that. Now, let's have a look at our products in some more detail. Because of the amount of IP that we've developed over the last 10 or so years, you can imagine that we have some interesting products that are hitting the market. I'd like to explain to you both France and Framework, just in brief. So France is the freelance robotic autonomous navigation system, and it provides a solution for automated control of mobile platforms, ranging from large mining vehicles to small interior robots. And by utilizing state-of-the-art technology, we can move your platform by autopilot from point A to point B with an unlimited number of waypoints in between. The accuracy is within 1 centimetre, and the system also contains a dynamic measurement unit consisting of a magnetometer, gyrometer, accelerometer, and RTK GPS. We can provide friends complete with the user manual, so if you would like to do your training in-house, please feel free, but we are available for customer support. And currently it is operational on a wide range of vehicles. And for example, there are 2 500-metre long irrigators, agbots, operating at Highlands, which is a commercial lawn farm in Singleton, New South Wales. And if you're interested in just having a look at a smaller operating unit, we do have a demonstration robot available, a little AV in the office. We're more than happy to do a tour with you. With regards to Framework provides an incremental pathway to upgrading a factory. So we're starting to look at industrial robots here. And this, in fact, is the industrial Internet of Things that we build around those robot integrations. We treat the factory as a black box from the start and help them just slowly turn the light on. And the system scales from a tiny single shed operation all the way through to full factory floor. Now, the freelance robotics advanced manufacturing elements can be looked at as a number of modules. For example, you might be interested in the manufacturing execution system, the MES, and that depends on the hardware and the individual customer's system. Okay, but a common interface between that and the other elements would ensure the factory systems we do gain the benefit of working together. So quite commonly, you might imagine that we have a dashboard, which is a desktop overview of how the factory is running in real time. AI, deep learning of system data, quality control analysis using 3D rendering and representation, as well as machine tending, which allows alerts such as email and text to key staff. And of course, there's cloud-based storage. Moving along, I just wanted to provide one example of a commercialized client solution. This is OzCloud, which is in fact a system that is a range of robots integrated together in sync to the cloud. So we have OzCrawler, which is a civil engineer's dream, honestly. It's a survey robot with a mounted camera, perfect for crawling into those unreachable spaces. The Simpole camera, which is a structure information manager, which allows you to simply compile field reports, as well as synchronizing the collected data between a centralized database server and its interface. There's a Refometer, smart GPS solution, and we survey bridge, road, pit and pipe and culverts. So think about storm water type infrastructure. This is up and running across a number of councils within Queensland. As noted earlier by Andrew, we are also on-cell distributors. Now, our social robots include Sambot, Temi, which Andrew has an operating version behind him right now. We also have the Bohom range of robots. Now, these include trolley robots. So as I said at the beginning, we are working inside of hospitality. Hospitality is huge. It doesn't just include a common restaurant, but is actually extremely useful in, for example, aged care facilities and hospital settings as well, particularly as we are facing the pandemic. We have moved into pandemic management, and our social robots have been particularly of interest. We have put the FRAN system onto a autonomous vehicle. It's just a little unit that sits there and you can put whatever you want on top. So for instance, if you wanted to do a hygiene type robot where you have just a simple ozone type after hours robot running, that's more than accomplishable with our existing systems. And then our industrial robotics partners, well, they're quite extensive because we do a lot of this work. Universal Robots, ABB, Bohom, Kuka, the list goes on. And so if you're interested in looking closer at a robotic arm, just one that's off the shelf and fit for sale, we're more than happy to talk to you about a customized solution or just a standard solution for that arm. This is industrial robotics. Hi, I'm very excited about the new division. This actually is the culmination of quite a few years of work inside of automating manufacturing concerns. And you can see that this is our range of services that are being provided. It's quite comprehensive because the reality of upgrading any working manufacturing concern to Industry 4 technology means a massive redevelopment of that system. And the question is, how do we do it with minimum impact to the floor and with maximum output and at an affordable price. So we've really, as I said before, with Framework, come up with a plan that's a stepping stone type plan so people can have an idea of where to start and where it's going to finish for them. So the example of industrial manufacturing concerns, we've worked inside of a food processing, garment production, pulp and paper, transport including aerospace, automotive and marine, chemical processing, metal and plastics fabrication, as well as mining. So, you know, it has excellent return on investment. And if you want to know more about the Industrial Robotics Division, we're more than happy to explain it to you. I have highlighted at the bottom the Robo Tradies program, not a surprise because I'm a psychologist and this has been a long time passion of mine to be able to advocate and upskill the hundreds of thousands of floor workers who are about to go through major transition as we transition up into advanced manufacturing. What has been interesting is actually how much integration has been taking place between floor and office staff, and the cultural changes that are taking place in factories is absolutely fascinating. I think will benefit the economy greatly. Moving on to our last topic today, which is smart cities. This year, although obviously we couldn't go anywhere because of the pandemic, we were very proud to have been finalists with the Go Smart Award. One of our projects, which is called SmartGen, it is a renewables powered public electric vehicle station. It also allows for public device charging. It's a microgrid, it's an after hours lighting system, it's a 5G tower potentially. The reality is that councils have not provided public infrastructure around electronic device charging and what have you. And this is really an opportunity to do that at no cost because it comes with advertising. So Go Smart were very excited about the project and we were extremely proud to bring it to market. We also have a current project, which is a smart water flow meter, and of course, Ames Cloud, which I described earlier. Now, when it comes to our scope of works inside of smart cities, they're broad. You had a look before at the prototyping work that we're doing, and we bring all of those skill sets into our smart cities capabilities. One of the things that Freelance Robotics prides itself in is the ability to do custom work. So that means that you bring us your project, what you want to do, and we will create a feasibility study and move forward with your project according to your need. So whilst there's a lot of work happening, and please do go to our website because you'll be able to read through the scope of works in more detail. The reality is that the most exciting part is not what we have available, but what you want to do and how we can meet your need. So if there's a project that you have in mind and you're thinking, how can we make this happen? Contact us. We're completely available for consultation to develop, not necessarily a commercial project. As I said, we've been working with government, as well as projects that might be more of an in-house or a bespoke infrastructure work. And that's also fine for us if you have maybe a smaller property. Thank you for your time. Please, as I said before, do reach out. Freelance Robotics staff, we're always happy to talk. We love customer service and we love customer relations. It makes a huge difference in our project deliverables. So if you are interested in developing a project across any of the areas that we've talked about today, I look forward to hearing from you. And I guess I'll beat Andrew to the punch and ask if you have any questions.
So any questions, please use the Q&A or jump into the chat, or if you're a panelist, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand actually. Okay, well, we do have some question time later on, so if you do think of a question, please hold on to that and we'll have an opportunity. Thank you, Amanda, that was fantastic. I love the Robo Tradie program. Definitely want to hear more about that.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, now moving on to Lyro Norton. So I'll just get
Yep.
Norton,
Great.
you can share your screen.
Share my screen now. Great. Thank you for having me here today. My name's Norton and I'm a co-founder at Lyro Robotics, where we're creating the brains, the eyes and the hands for the next generation of smart robots. We're a Brisbane-based robotics startup founded in late 2019, and we spun out of the Australian Centre for Robotic Vision, which is a $25 million funded research agency headquartered at QUT. Whilst we were there, we were part of the Amazon Challenge winning team, where we designed a robotic system that was able to autonomously pick and pack e-commerce orders. And our solution that we developed, it was as I said, the winning solution against teams such as MIT, Toshiba, Mitsubishi, and the solution that we developed was over 15% better than the second place team at more than 5 times cheaper than the cost. We're now excited to be commercializing this technology to enable automation where we haven't seen automation before. And we're doing this by building on over a decade of research into vision and grasping. And our vision is to free people from performing dirty, dull, or dangerous tasks through a robotic workforce that is scalable, intelligent, and easy to deploy. We develop robotic systems that perform picking and packing tasks across a wide variety of industries. As you can see here, agriculture, e-commerce, e-grocery, health, warehousing. And that's because of the sort of technology that we develop. But our systems are fast to be deployed and don't require expensive redesigning of your facilities, since one of the key benefits of what we do is that we design retrofittable solutions. So gone are the days where you need to run complete refits of your facilities. We can come in and demonstrate our technology on your existing setup with minimal changes. We achieve this through the state-of-the-art brains, eyes, and hands, as we call it. So the brain, which is the AI systems and the decision-making software that enable our robots to be capable of continuously learning while they're on the job, but also enabling them to easily transition into multiple industries with similar tasks that are in the picking and packing industry. Through the hands, with our custom developed robotic grippers, as well as our ability to adapt to existing gripper technologies to enable our robots to pick a wide variety of items, depending on the application that they are needed to. And the eyes, which is our camera systems and machine learning vision algorithms that allow our robots to not only see the world and see the items that they're trying to pick, but also make decisions around what would be the best way to pick up that item so that it can be effectively packed into the container that it needs to go into. And there are so many application areas where our robotic technology is, this is, I guess, all packaged up into our main product, which is what we call Lyro Machine Intelligence. It's a central software system that enables all sorts of robotic systems to make use of these capabilities. So we have demonstrated that using Lyro Machine Intelligence, we can enable not only our custom-built robotic arms, but also industrial robotic arms and cobots to be able to pick and pack items in all sorts of different industries. There are many application areas where we are currently using our robotic technology, and we're already seeing that they are able to reduce cost, improve productivity, improve safety, and a really interesting thing is that they are providing the opportunity for these companies to think about scaling effectively. Here's a quick video of our system in an e-commerce setting. And what I kind of want to highlight here is our robot is able to look at all the items in this sort of cluttered environment, find the item it wants, decide which way to pick it up, and then which way to orientate it so it can be packed into the box, all within our Lyro Machine Intelligence framework. So the agriculture industry has a huge reliance on seasonal labour, and particularly in Australia where farmers rely heavily on backpacker labour. However, amplified by COVID-19, their need for autonomous solutions has never been more clear, with backpacker labour quickly being realised that it's not the most reliable source, especially in a global pandemic. So what we were able to do is actually demonstrate that we could deploy our robotic system in an avocado facility, as you can see on the bottom right-hand side here. That's our custom designed robotic system. And with that robotic system, we were able to retrofit onto their existing production line within 45 minutes and start picking and packing avocados in a pattern-packed way. And so this is just the beginning of what we're able to do, because with our Lyro Machine Intelligence, we have actually demonstrated with this exact same robotic system, we can also pick up mangoes, stone fruit, citrus fruits, and chilies in that industry alone. We have also seen a massive boom in e-commerce over this COVID period, and it has resulted in us actually generating a lot of interest from e-commerce suppliers such as 3PL providers, especially with the incoming, I guess, with Amazon incoming into Australia and starting to implement some of their automation solutions. We're seeing a huge interest from Australian companies wanting to automate their facilities. And this is where our technology really comes into its own, because it allows them to not have to completely refit their operations in order to get into this space. They can test our technology out in their existing operations, and we can perform duties such as order fulfillment, stock take, sorting, returns, as long as the problem is requiring the robot to pick and pack something somewhere, our robot is capable to learn it. And if you look on the right-hand side of this slide here, you can see actually the Lyro machine intelligence is enabling two completely different robotic systems. One's a Cartesian and one's a Revolute arm. It's enabling both of those systems to perform the same task. And that's the versatility and the flexibility that our system offers, so that so the right robot can be chosen for the right job, essentially. We also have partners in the retail sector with Hello Robotics. And what we're partnering with them to do is to create robotic systems that are able to work in the retail sector to monitor shelves and ensure that they are restocked appropriately and that any orders that are required to be fulfilled are being fulfilled. So yeah, that's a quick one from me. If you have any robotic needs for picking and packing, then we're your go-to people, and we'd love to have a chat with you. Thank you.
Excellent, Norton. Thank you very much. And yeah, this is a great success story because it's a young company built on some fantastic technology. And so there's some fantastic enthusiasm that's going on. And so there's some real opportunities to accelerate this capability. So thank you, Norton. And any questions, please put them into the chat or into the Q&A. So now we're moving on into the education sector. So Adam's with Micromelon, and they're doing some great work in trying to prime the pipeline of future roboticists and other people that we need to bring into our industry. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders of Micromelon Robotics. We're an education company that started in 2017 in Brisbane. My co-founder Tim and I were teaching a couple of the robotics courses at UQ and also running school workshops with the outreach program for the university. And we weren't really happy with the teaching resources we had for running those school workshops. So we built our own sort of dodgy version that we could run a few things a year with, and one of the teachers asked if they could buy it, and we had to say no. So that was when we decided to make Micromelon a real thing. So the main problem we found with existing robots in education was that a lot of them were consumer robots just shoehorned into the classroom. They weren't designed for classroom use. So we went for creating this simple robot that you can see on the screen. It's got all of the sensors any school students could need, as well as university students when they get there. So that it's all ready built. They don't have to spend 3 or 4 lessons with the teacher running around the room trying to work out why no one's robot's plugged together properly, but it still allows for that expansion later on. And then in the younger years, we've got our software for connecting to the robots. So younger students like to or need to work in a Scratch type environment where they can, drag everything in and get going. But we wanted this as seamless as possible. So it's just an ID that appears on the screen of the robot, and they can immediately start running any code. But they also get each line of code highlighting as they run it. And then when they get more confident, they can come in and they can do Python-based programming as well. And what we really found was that a lot of students, they become confident in the blocks, but then they wouldn't really want to make that big jump to Python because it's a huge change. And our core thing was enabling them to do some, risking the live demo here, do some programming in blocks, and as they become more confident, they can read from their sensors and have the blocks build back with errors if they've made mistakes. And then as soon as they've got something right, all of the blocks build correctly. So they have that immediate feedback in the blocks, but they can start writing real code. And then the teachers have the option to then restrict their editing mode. So if they want students, they reckon they're confident enough, they can say, all right, you're only allowed to edit in Python, or you're only allowed to edit in blocks for now, but just watch the Python. And then they can also disable or mute all the robots in the room or share their current project. So it's really designed around classroom use and getting students through the learning curve from the drag and drop style into writing real code as fast as possible. But then extensions to that, it's, you know, robotics is not just about programming. Students need to be learning more than that. So as they come through, they can develop 3D printed attachments such as this one. So we've got servo motor connectors out the back of the robot, as well as an expansion header with UART and everything else. So this was a workshop where students learned to design a robotic scoop and then attach it to the robot and have a bit of a competition of moving the styrofoam balls to the other colored side. So they've got the color sensors, the distance sensors, everything they need to navigate this area and move things around. They can also do this sort of sumo style challenges where they 3D print their own weapons. Some pretty interesting designs that have come out of that. And then for the more advanced, so this was an assignment with fourth year engineering at UQ where they attach a Raspberry Pi with a camera to the top and do autonomous driving challenges with SLAM, other computer vision, whatever they like. So we just change the environment every time and they have to navigate between waypoints that they can see, starting with QR codes and moving on to things like playing cards to get their image recognition going a bit better. But with COVID, we realized that not every student's in the classroom. So we immediately turned around to develop a simulator. So the physics is very close to the real robot, and the students can do any of the challenges that they would otherwise need to do, as well as enabling the camera backpack. And in the software, it's exactly the same. They just type in a different number. So they have the same connection experience, same API. And this protocol, we're open sourcing soon, so you'll be able to control any of the robots from any programming language. We also made a Matlab API available for some of the university students because that was what they were most comfortable in. And then it's the same thing of you run the code, the robot goes, the student failed the challenge. They can start and stop their code from inside the simulator as well. So that's the core of our offering, is to make education as simple as possible in the classroom, giving the teachers the capability to really control what their students work on, even down to the individual level of some students progressing faster than others. So they do the text first. So they've got individual student control at that level. And the students, once they're ready with this, they go to text only, and then they can just open up Python in whatever IDE they choose and start getting stuck into some more complex challenges. But yes, that's us. So I'll chuck it back to Andrew, and any questions, let me know. Thanks. Excellent.
Thank you, Adam. And I particularly love the spikes when the student failed the mission. So well done. And it's fantastic that you've adapted. So that's a really good example of how, you know, COVID's hit and you've adapted your platform. So well done. Big congratulations. So if anybody has any questions for Adam, please just hold on to them and for the question and answer time. And now we're heading into I guess you could say, the industrial space again, construction, mining, keeping people safe. And so we've got Nathan Kirchner, founder of Procyon, but he's also got a fairly deep background in robotics from a variety of of areas. So over to you, Nathan.
Hi everyone. Someone say that can see that.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so to give you a brief background. So I guess starting with the company. So was running an engineering project in Lyro Norton's large construction company. Burnt about $5.5 million of someone who makes $10 billion a year's money, so I don't feel too bad. And all of a sudden it made sense to spin it off and start a company. Managed to raise about 7 million this year from free market VCs. So that's all great. Robotics, as you well and truly know, is the ability to see what's going on and understand it, come up with a plan based on that and other things you know, and then do the plan. This fragment we're starting on is probably leaning towards the see and understand aspect. So you can see the end device here, which is intentionally being made invisible because users don't like seeing things. It was simple camera system on the back, simple tagline, AI vision systems for heavy industries. Jump into it. Okay, so leaning pretty heavily towards why we'd bother to do something to this, because I always find that a little bit more interesting. The tech's cool, but maybe we can all sit in dark rooms and do the tech. So roughly, each year about 200 people die in workplace incidents and about 100,000, 110,000 get seriously injured. These are just the serious injuries. These are the kind of injuries where you go home at the end of the day and you say to your significant other, gee, I was pretty sure I used to have 10 of these things. What happened to the other ones? Don't know. Or never walk again, those kind of things. If we're going to start dragging paper cuts and stuff, it probably gets a bit worse than that, but first world problems for paper cuts. About 65% of all incidents in workplaces, got hit by something, got crushed by something, machine cut something off. It's quite disproportionate. So there's a couple of sectors, ag forestry is the worst, where it's really dangerous, and there's a few sectors where it's not too bad. 84% of all incidents come from the fact that life's pretty boring. So you get distracted. So I only took my eyes off the road for a second, I only looked the other way for a second, I was just listening to what guy said, I just didn't notice it there. Those kind of small distractions, or I didn't hear what you said, causes a large chunk of these incidents. I think that's already bad enough. I don't like the idea of people getting squished, but if you're probably more financially inclined than I am, you jump over to the other side of the slide and start to think places like ABS and show Bureau Statistics and Safe Work estimate this has a yearly impact on Australia's economy of $61.8 billion. So some of that is the job didn't get done, some of that's a payout, some of that's didn't get coffee that day, didn't buy lunch that day, didn't catch a taxi, kid didn't go to school, so that's one less bus driver, and so on, someone didn't pay their mortgage. It's a lot of dollars. Probably even more significant, as a nation, we spend over $100 billion a year trying to stop this kind of thing happening. Just the engineer in me is frustrated by that, because I would prefer a solution that worked rather than a lot of money spent on a solution that does nothing. Insurance is great, but it's after the thing's already happened, and the thing that's happening is people getting hurt. So I'd like to get in before that. We go to the next one. So I think Joe touched on this slightly before. Traditionally, we have the hierarchy of controls. So the pyramid, Joe showed the inverted version of the pyramid before. It's all good. That's nice. Lots of good principles in there. Lots of good works being done. I think we should keep it. But 84% of the time, people just took their eyes off the road for a second, so the controls fail. I think Joe's got a pretty good angle with, if the controls fail in his case, the danger is a long way away from the person, therefore it's okay. This is a slightly different approach. You would have seen plenty of passive user devices like the reverse camera in your car, for instance. So that's great, you just got to be watching it all the time. It's hard enough to watch your reverse camera in your car when you're reversing. Imagine you're doing a job and, why aren't you watching the reverse camera? Oh, I don't know, because I'm making a road and I thought I'd look at the blade on the dozer instead of watching the camera, that kind of thing. Then we start to jump over into the proximity and the tag beacon based stuff. So proximity is kind of interesting. So you start to think of things like LiDARs or UWBs. There's some interesting stuff there. But if you start to look at environments such as, you know, we saw from Lyro, or you can imagine a construction site, or you can imagine just even on the street outside, everything's within 8 meters. So if you've got just a distance sensor, proximity sensor on the back of a truck going down a laneway, yeah, it goes off. Everything's within 8 meters. The walls within 8 meters, the cars within 8 meters, the bins within 8 meters, everything's within 8 meters. It renders it kind of useless. Tag beacon-based system is kind of interesting. So that's the idea of, you know, your swipe card. So if you're wearing a swipe card, then the system can see you. Kind of, I'd semantically argue that no, it can't. If you need a scan card to be registered, it's not seeing anything. You're checking in. Probably on the more social side, it's irrelevant. So 24% of all incidents are from people who are dropping their kids at school, or just going to the shops, or just minding their own business, or just general passerbys. So we are not going to go into public spaces and just start handing out these things at $1,000 a pop, or even $100 a pop, saying one day you might come near harm's way, and if you don't have one of these, you're invisible and the machine will kill you. So just in case, carry one of these. That's already bad enough. I don't know who's got kids, but the kids getting squished are in the 24%. So I'd like to avoid that. Another about 25% are people like us, who really, if you think about it, in a harsh world, we're office workers. But unfortunately, they let us onto things like mine sites and let us onto things like construction sites because we are doing something kind of engineering and are doing something kind of techie. So we're the kind of semi-qualified or look good on paper but shouldn't be there. You jump into the boots of the guy on the ground for a second. Imagine going up to a work crew and saying, I'm statistically more likely, if you read the Australian Bureau of Statistics data, I'm actually 22 times more likely than you to get injured by your machine. Give me your safety protection PPE, please. I suspect your answer will be in the rural Australian version of French, and you won't be getting the tag. So none of that kind of works. There is something kind of coming out now, maybe a year or two ago, the new AI, which is actually things that can see and think for themselves. We already had a talk from ACRV kind of inspiration, so you get the idea of things that can see. I just contrast it to the old stuff, which is some rocket scientist in marketing decided that a motion detector was AI or a buzzer was AI, and so they've kind of jumped on the buzzword bingo bandwagon and just said, yeah, we've got blockchain and AI because, you know, we do, which is not that true, but we ran out of words, and I'm not that interested in making words, more interested in making solutions. So what do? It's very simple, and it's probably the hardest thing to do from someone with a technology background. It's hit it. So we did lots of clever stuff. Lots of vision processing. It runs on a CNN, so deep learning neural network, to actually see and understand what it sees. So not too dissimilar from what you would have heard from Lyro a second ago. And that's in a little black box that's hidden in the engine bay somewhere that no one ever really thinks about and doesn't even know it exists, kind of thing. We have a sensor, which is just an RGB camera to feed the CNN. We call it a sensor because you cannot put cameras around workers without them freaking out too easily. It's easier just so everyone knows, we actually obscure the images, so there is no image, there is nothing for someone to go and look at. But it's just easier to, since we're treating it like data, just tell the industrial relations that it is just a data generating device. Then the vertical layer here, the control and data analytics, is actually the touch points. So how do you use it? We've got a nice little app interface. It's not quite as nice as Adam's micromelon stuff, so hats off, Chief. That looks pretty cool. But it's that kind of idea of, if we can make it more accessible, the person needs to push the button, they've got more chance of pushing the button to get it set up. And then data analytics is probably the same thing, but coming the other direction. If you can look at the screen and have a better understanding of what it's seeing and what it's doing and what it's learnt and what's happened, that's more useful. If you think we've got AI little boxes out in the world that just harvest data in real time, so in and of themselves they do something, they help people not get squished, which is probably the main reason. But they also count things, seize things, track things, measure things, recognize things. You start to imagine that pumping into you know, Microsoft BI or any kind of Excel or any kind of chart generator, and you start to go, oh, how many things happened today? Where'd they happen? Put them on Google Maps. Whereabouts in the world was it happening? Where are my hotspots? Where are my problems? That kind of stuff. Over onto the right-hand side, the very, very simple alert, which I think the easiest thing to say is like, you know, your phone's vibrated, a notification on your phone or an email. So it's just kind of like, oh, saw something, here's your nudge. So the whole behavioral nudge kind of mentality. That obviously has some forms in a construction site or heavy industries. So we'll have a look at this. This is unfortunately very, very typical. Let me run you through this. So the mate in the excavator was doing some work. I don't know what they do. Maybe Brody from UFR can tell us what the hell excavators do, but he looked like he was busy. A bunch of, I can only assume, managers, because only managers would be that stupid, came up to the back of the machine, stood on the bottom of the ballast and had a tea party. The operator was particularly annoyed because he had to stop working because there were 4 or 5 people standing behind him just talking. They all left, and the system kept alerting him via a haptic feedback vibrating on the control stick that something was in his blind spot. So that was the alert. He yelled out the window to us, standing there taking the photo in beautifully fluent rural Australian version of French, that our system was less than desirable. At which time the guy who was standing behind the excavator holding onto the scraping blade to make sure it didn't float away answered him in also French, I'm okay, mate, I'm not doing anything. It was actually quite beautiful because the operator turned around and went, you just saved that guy's life. I was about to slew. We kind of thought, don't know if you would have killed him, but yep, cool, good point. The next bit was even better. The guy in the background who's watching that concrete block to make sure it didn't float away gets paid $70 an hour to stare at the back of the operating machine to make sure no one's there, to let the operator know if someone's there. His only input to this whole thing was, can you guys shut up? I'm trying to do something. So it's just like, my God, that whole thing unfolded within about 1 minute of being in operation. Asked the guys later at Smokehouse, how often would that happen? And they're like, yeah, 10 times an hour kind of thing. Like, okay, so it's just catastrophic. There's many, many examples like that, but I'll leave it at that for the sake of time. Just to jump onto the glorious bubbles of making lots and lots of money and retiring young. So we're starting on machine safety, on mobile safety. It's a situational awareness device. So we also have a version of the Hierarchies Control thing that Joe showed, the triangle. Instead of drawing out separation as our key contributor, it's more about automating or completely automating the loop between the engineering administrative controls and then the actual interventions on the site. So it's a system that adds a whole extra administrative control and engineering control to your task, but it's fully automated, so it adds no actual burden. It actually makes it easier to do more. If we do some very, very simple maths, the market for just putting that on machines around the world is $84 billion, which seems like it's more than I get paid, so worth having a crack at. If we skip into the next one, which is probably, let's say wet fingers a year or two away, we start thinking about fixed safety. So we had an example from Lyro in a, let's call that a factory, it's a processing plant, right? There's going to be no-go zones, exclusion zones, machine operating zones, things in there. As soon as we start putting sensors on doorways, there's a lot of doorways. So I have an example from Wholesome Humes, who are in Milton, which is in Brisbane somewhere, just an eye shock doorway. So it just had a doorway. It was like walking into the sun when you went in and walking into a hole when you went out. I think I got that backwards, but you know what I mean. Also had something like 50 or 60 heavy vehicle movements through the doorway every hour, and a pedestrian walkway perpendicular to that. So it was just a death zone, it was just miraculous death zone. So to install a simple system for them, just to show, well, now the heavy vehicles can have traffic lights and alerts in their actual vehicles, and 100 meters away know if someone's coming, know if someone's about to be walking through the doorway, and I guess accelerate if they're a psycho, or maybe wait a second if they're not. It just seems like a little bit more useful. So that flew quite well. There's also, someone will have to help me, Patrick's has got a port out in B&E, out near your airport. So they've also got plenty of that kind of plan infrastructure thing. And I always get confused by BHP, it's either BMC or BMA. I get confused. One of them has the hallway, if trucks are going this way, they're full of whatever it is that they mine, so I don't want to stop them. And they can't stop. So there is no right of way here because this truck couldn't stop even if it wanted to. So that little version of safety. They're very toe in the water type things, but already shows a strong interest or strong possibility. Other applications, it just becomes ludicrous, to be honest with you. So things like coordinating. So Coles, the forklift turned up, so send the packers out there now. Any kind of situational awareness that leads into coordinating, and it really is just something we do all the time. So that's it. I spent zero time talking about what we actually do and a lot of time talking about why. I hope that was somehow interesting anyway.
Excellent. Thank you, Nathan. And right behind me, I've got a demonstrator of Nathan's technology. So it's sitting right here. So it is fairly well compact. And again, this is another story. Precision is not that old. And so it just shows the rapid speed of technology deployment and adoption. Okay, now we're moving into the world of underwater and seafaring robotics. And we've got Darren Foster with us with his fantastic background as always. So over to you, Darren.
Thank you, Andrew. And guys, I've got to tell you that watching each of your presentations before me, I think triggers my my innate imposter syndrome every time. We have an absolutely fantastic cohort of robotics technology that's growing up inside the Australian industry, and it's really, really good to see. Unfortunately, Preeti, I didn't catch your presentation before I was on a call to the US, but I'm always interested to talk to people in central Queensland because as you can see with this robot that's behind me, our job as roboticists and in the robotics industry is to try and change this idea that robots are these nasty creatures with evil eyes that are coming to get us. And this is actually a comic book cover from the 1950s. So it gives you an idea of how much we have to overcome with regards to ingrained training for not trusting robots. It's been 70 years at least of that. So Artemis Robotics has been around now for a little while, and actually before I get into it, I understand that we've got a Mr. Jeffrey Shoecraft might be on the line somewhere, and hi Jeffrey if you're out there. And I'd like to encourage any of our companies who are presenting today to ensure that you get a chance to talk to Jeffrey at some point. He's an amazing individual. And if you do spend some time with him, ask him about his time with some great Australian bands. So I spent some time with Jeffrey, wrong view, sorry guys. Just go back out of it. So Jeffrey's had some great spending a great amount of time up in. Am I still sharing, Andrew?
You are, but you're in presenter mode. So I think you just need to.
Okay, thank you.
To change the mode.
There we go. So yes, Jeffrey's one of our representatives for Trade Investment Queensland up in the UAE. Fantastic guy. Artemis Robotics has been around for a little while now, and we have got two business models. One of them is robotics as a service, and any of you who are out there in the robotics industry are well aware of robotics as a service, and this is really the business model that's going to bring robotics manufacturing to Australia, because what it does is it really brings down our barriers of manufacturing costs. Allows us to turn that into a capital cost, and then we can simply head out to industry and start undertaking work with our robotics. Currently, Artemis is trying to raise $8.5 million for our robotics as a service section of work, and that industry size is well over $100 billion. Just on that robotics as a service for the marine pile inspections. The second one is again a very much a very standard model which we're all used to working with, which is a robotics as a retail product with a software as a service background. And again, the idea with any of our robotics industry is to continue to create cash flow and to look at how we can increase cash flow through our businesses. And we're doing some great prototyping with the University of Queensland. In fact, we've had some fantastic news back from them on our quarterly results that came through in this last quarter. To give you an overview of some of what the ports market might look like, you can see here, this is the number of ports in the world, and the approximate number of berths, and the approximate number of piles. And pile inspections is basically one of the technologies that underpins our company's projected cash flow. And the reason for it is, as you can see, there's a total listed piles of 6.3 million right through the world. So there's a lot of piles around, and of course port infrastructure is one of those critical pieces of infrastructure which we need to ensure keep pumping in or out goods through our ports. The key offerings for our different industries are bulk trade, industrial infrastructure, transportation systems, and building services. And again, our entire business model is wrapped around being able to supply each of those different industries, different parts of our technology, and being able to supply that in such a way as we get really good, quick market penetration. So to dive down into what we're all about then, Artemis Robotics has really been talking about, and it looks like I might have stopped sharing there.
Sorry, you have slides that's frozen, so if you could just share again, it'll probably refresh.
Don't you love technology, guys?
There we
go. What view are we in there? There we go. This always reminds me when I was starting out a few years ago. We were giving I was the first up to give a speech through the Mets Ignited KPMG down at a big conference in Melbourne. And nobody could get any of the technology to work so that we could present it. So I spent the first 5 minutes telling jokes about how good technology was, and how KPMG is a small company and we've got to give them some leeway because, you know, they've only just started. So estimated market size for ports, as you can see there, a huge amount of ports. And for those companies who are out there who are looking for a particular niche market to go into, always remember that when you're looking at these huge, great big markets, and structural integrity inspections are a trillion-dollar marketplace. And so when looking and trying to address any sort of marketplace, the best thing to do is to try and break it down into smaller parts so that you can try and address those smaller parts of the marketplace rather than trying to address the whole thing. Offerings, I think, oh, we're going the wrong way, sorry. No, now we're still going the wrong way. My apologies. So, talking about structural integrity, down into structural integrity, we're really looking at how to have a look inside of the structural wall of anything, basically, and be able to give some feedback on what that looks like. How far along in its lifetime is that structure? How are we going to be able to make an assessment? What sort of maintenance is it going to need? And how long is it going to last before we have to replace it? In some cases, we're talking about replacement costs that are multi-billion dollars. And to throw that into some light, we were recently, well, last year we were contacted by a large company out of the UAE that was looking to inspect 11 ports. Now, those 11 ports each had around, 11 berths had around 350 piles each. And they were trying to make a decision about whether or not they were going to revamp what they had, or they had to destroy the whole thing. And that was a $33 billion question mark that they had. And so being able to give really good results back with regards to where any particular structure is in its structural life is really important, and gives a huge amount of fiscal return. Current infrastructure inspections are really very much based on the experience of the person who is looking at it. It really comes down to, what am I looking at? Where do I think there is a problem? How am I going to approach that problem? And they go over and they take a look at one really small area of any given structure based on their experience. And as we move forward into the future, we really need a little bit more information than that, because what we worked out was that you're actually getting back less than 1% of the structural information in any given piece of infrastructure. So what we're doing is we're enabling engineers to be able to see what's happening inside that structural wall and really make those good decisions. In one of our pieces of technologies, what we've done here is we've combined a bunch of different technologies into one piece of technology. And we've done that in such a way as to bring about something that hadn't been seen before, which is the ability to see inside the structural wall, to be able to map the outside of the structural wall, and then create the whole thing in a three-dimensional space. And you can see here, this is one of our robots running in the background. It's over 4 meters in diameter, and has the ability to adapt from between an 800 millimeter pile to a 1.2 millimeter pile, which means that it can adapt as it goes, or in ports you have different piles of different sizes. And you can see the readouts there on the right-hand side of the screen. And that's telling us things like, you know, how thick is the pile wall, and where the defects are, because we actually machined a bunch of defects into this. Oh, it's running again, into this pile. It was the world's first automated structural integrity scanner for marine piling at the time, and we've just received our patent through for the US. We're hoping to receive our patent for Australia shortly. It's been allowed, and we're constantly on that bleeding edge of really big robotics technology and scanning technology. And it looks like I might have frozen again. Oh, here we go. With regards to our concrete inspection, you can see here that we're using a waveguide. That's one of the things that we identified was that at the moment, we're quite good at being able to identify cracks on the surface. And there's a lot of stuff out there that can do that. But what we're not really good at is being able to see cracking in multi-dimensions, buried deep within the concrete structure, and how we can actually model that. And so what we did is we looked at a various amount of sensors, and we settled on a particular millimeter wave. And we started looking at how those simulations might look, and where we might be able to see some of those cracks. Once we'd identified that we could actually see the cracks and the depths that we could see the cracks, the next thing we needed to know is, are we able to see it in front of rebar, in front of a steel mesh? Because we knew that the wavelengths that we were working with, we knew that they couldn't penetrate through that rebar. So we needed to see the cracks sitting in front of that rebar, because the rebar was giving us such a strong and intense reading. And that gave us the ability, one, to be able to measure the rebar, because we were getting such enormous feedback from them. But two, and most importantly, we learnt that we could see those cracks, and we could actually see delamination. So when the concrete starts to come away from the rebar, and that led us into being able to map that structural integrity. Mapping that structural integrity, again, we learnt a lot of stuff out of that. We really thought that when we modelled a crack, the crack would just simply be a crack, you know, would crack down to where it was going to go and then branch out in one or two places. What we actually learnt was that these cracks are more like a tree or a tree root in a way, in that they have a single outer crack that is quite large, and then as they go down, they branch out into a lot of smaller cracks. And again, this was a huge leap forward in our understanding of how concrete starts to degrade over time, and how we can map the water ingress into concrete that then leads to the capillary action, which then from there leads into the spoiling of the concrete and the rusting of the rebar. Now, if you have headphones on, I suggest that you turn them down.
And just for clarity, Darren, the robot's working above the water level as well as below the water level on the pylons?
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Darren. One quick question, you know, the actual robot that goes around the pylons, it's scanning and looking above the waterline as well as below the waterline, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It was one of the many things that we had to be able to overcome was, in fact, the LiDAR that we developed had to be able to refocus from above water to underwater. And so we had to have in there an autofocus situation where it could detect that it had gone in underwater, and then we had to be able to overcome the idea of it getting down to 30 meters or more, and that particular model is certified to 30 meters, but to move from 30 meters to 1,000 meters is not that difficult. The technology is very well known.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions that have come through. Seems we have more people tuned in on the YouTube than the webinar, but anyway, it's a lesson learned. But lucky that the questions coming through. So there's one for Adam. Just in terms of your educational platform, what's your business model? Is it a similar to the Lego, buy a kit, get some training, or is it a services model?
We have both. So the robots themselves we sell in class sets of 10. So they come in a Pelican-like case with all the charging built in, and that's a $4,000 upfront cost. And then depending on what features they want in the software, you know, being able to turn off all the robots in a room is pretty nice when you're a teacher. So those kind of things are a yearly subscription per student account. And then we have the sort of professional development and other services like coming and running a set of workshops at the school ourselves. So yeah, it's across all of it.
Excellent. And a question from Jeffrey. He's interested in scale. How many, and you know, just for perspective, the number of students and the number of people I want to train in Saudi is a significant number. Do you have any limitation on scale in terms of number of teachers per unit, or even your ability to get it out there? How many units have you got deployed at the moment?
We've got a couple of hundred units deployed through Southeast Queensland, and you know, all our tooling's done, so we don't have much of an issue as far as manufacturing. That's just and as long as it's, you know, we can move factories, but we can sort of order what we need at the moment, which is good. And as far as, I'm not sure what's meant by the teachers per unit, but schools will, for a class of say 30, they'd usually use, depending on the school's budget, either one between two or one robot each for the students. And then the teachers, we don't have a limit on the teacher accounts, the limit's on the student accounts, so they can bring teacher aides in and add them as instructors and those sort of things.
And mentors and so forth. Cool, excellent. Okay, again, reminding everybody, we'll just keep it open for a few more questions. The other question that, and this is a pre-question, around collaboration. Does anybody want to sort of comment on how you've been collaborating with other companies? It has been mentioned a couple of times, but I just wanted to give someone the opportunity to highlight further collaboration. And this is, you know, working together to deliver an outcome for a customer. Anybody want to comment on that?
I can jump in, Andrew, if you like. You know, because it's a very sort of important part of our business model, and the reach to a number of customers and use sort of problems. So even with Rio Tinto, you know, we're using an integrator who's already supplying a lot of their fire and emergency response equipment into Rio. So that was good there, and we could tap into their expertise as well as, you know, their sort of market-specific industry knowledge. That was sort of one example. Again, with CSIRO Wildcat sensor pack, we're in discussions with the early adopters of that technology in the market, so AutoMap and the like. So again, we'll, you know, collectively sort of, you know, build out solutions to meet end customer needs, and, you know, it gives us a real opportunity to, you know, to bring, you know, our opportunities forward, and rely on other Australian businesses to assist, you know, to tick those boxes, instead of trying to do everything all in-house.
Cool, excellent. Darren, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, so we've collaborated with the universities quite a lot, and certainly we reference industry quite a lot, and we've also spoken to Freelance Robotics about collaborating with them to solve problem for a company who ultimately ended up going to CSIRO to get their solution. And I think that's one of the great things about the Australian community is that the Australian robotics community is that we do have particular pieces of specialisation that that we are able to share with each other and work together to bring a collaborative solution across to some of these larger players.
Excellent. Amanda?
I just want to add an extra dimension, which is, the work that can be done with industry hubs is quite high value. So we have, for instance, ARM Hub, the Advanced Robotics Manufacturing Hub, which is really rolled out strongly this year despite COVID. And the reality is that we do need to have service coordinators who are third party, and they're not necessarily industry partners in the classical sense. But I think in terms of the work that they're doing, advocating for our companies is impressive. And I've been very happy with their service delivery.
Excellent. Thank you, Amanda. Nathan, I think you had something.
Yeah, I've got a simple one. So we've done some stuff with the universities and stuff as well. But I think it's simple just to say I'm on the same page as everyone else there. The really simple one, Collab, I think it's worth drawing attention to because I've kind of find it a personal success story, was we did something with Swarm Farm, which is a robotics company out in the middle of nowhere, Queensland. And they were this close to making a sale for, I think it was a turf farm, but the turf farmer had an objection that the system didn't quite have enough capabilities in this one aspect. And that just happened to be our core business. So it's like, oh, okay, well, here's our thing. We could make you an API so you can connect it directly into your thing. You don't have to make that capability. You can just have our capability to do it. We'll tell you how to connect to it from behind the scenes. Shh, don't tell the lawyers, but make your sale.
Excellent. Yeah, and I've heard that story, and that's a great story.
We found out now, Nathan. And actually, while you were talking, Nathan, I also wanted to highlight the fact that there's often a lot of tenders being put forward, and I've been really happy working with a range of the robotics cluster industry group partners as we've made moves on a range of really exciting tenders. Obviously, tenders are complicated and it's always a bit of a crapshoot, a bit of a gamble, but it's been, I think, very professional, and I've been extremely pleased with our work within the cluster as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, well, any other questions, please keep them coming through and we'll get them to the speakers. What I'll do now is I'll actually invite Nathan to speak again and just give us a quick update. Nathan and Joe are both on the board of Robotics Australia Group. And so I think it'd be worthwhile just for a few comments on where things are at. With Robotics Australia.
Can I just jump in? I just had a thought. My brain processes a bit slowly. And just on that comment about collaboration. Look, I think one of the great issues we face in Australia is that we simply do not have the imagination, the innovation and thought leadership in the heads of industry who understands the potential of technology and robotic capabilities that we have in Australia and the advantage that they can deliver. I think that's we've dumbed down. There's no question of that. Yeah. And I think, potentially for Jeffrey, I mean, you have a very solid, very capable robotics base in Australia that is screaming for attention and screaming for a market. If someone from overseas and talking about collaboration said, look, here's this capacity here, it's on the shelf, it's on tap, they're keen to go, you would instantly have one of the better robotic capabilities in the world on your doorstep, no questions asked. I mean, we all love Australia dearly, but being a startup for 4 or 5 years, I think I would speak for everyone that if someone just said, okay, your frustration's over, come and actually do some good and make stuff happen, we'd all be gone tomorrow. Okay, that is not the official Robotics Australia Group message. Nathan, please take over.
Thank you, Joe.
It's a brilliant segue though. So the official message, if you want to, cut underneath it to what it actually means, is pretty much what Joe just said. So Robotics in Australia Group's being set up as a peak body for robotics in Australia to play the advocacy role. So Amanda mentioned the advocacy that Arm Hub's doing. So Robotics Australia Group's about trying to take that to the next level, maybe spending a bit more time in Canberra, so to speak, and actually trying to change the narrative out there to robotics are good and we're actually going to change the world. That leads into probably the core challenge. So the core challenge is we have these fragments of excellence, or these pockets of excellence in our country. And we really, really have some amazing things here. We seriously punch above our weight, but we tell absolutely no one. My favorite story for this one is a project I worked on about 20 years ago now to make an autonomous grip blasting robot that just grip blasted the Harbour Bridge. And it's been under the Harbour Bridge 24/7 for the last 10 years, just grip blasting, so it can be resurfaced and repainted. It wasn't until about 5 years after the project I really appreciated just how I'd never told anyone. And I did it when I was in England and saw the robot on the BBC, and I'm like, I've never seen that on Australian TV. Like, how do the British even know about this? So I really started to think, well, we do punch above our weight. If we were coordinated, if we talked a bit more to each other, we could really establish, cement, and then grow this sustainable and internationally competitive national robotics industry. So like Joe was saying, we have the talent here. We just need to get more visibility. We need to start demonstrating it. We really, really just need to connect the dots, and we will be internationally competitive and internationally attractive, which is great because I also love Australia, but there's really two people and a dog here. And if you start to look at the populations or the markets overseas, we could probably make a bit more money there, which is just exciting because we'll reinvest into doing something. So just a quick update on Robotics Australia Group. So probably the most exciting thing first, we're revenue positive. So we're actually making more money than we're spending, which is not spectacularly impressive because it's not like there's a staff of 8,000, but to at least have the bank account balance going up so we can start doing more activities and start putting on more events and start doing more advocacy for our community, that's great. We are starting to see a bit of an increase in the investment in robotics in Australia. I don't want to play any games, it's nowhere near satisfactory, and the tone of the investment is nowhere near palatable. I think we need to do a lot better, and we need to change a lot of attitudes in VCs and in industry. But at least there's a small uptick. We've started, so that's positive. I'll take the small win. That's positive. I think one of the biggest things we've got going for us here is we're leaps and bounds ahead. So this whole dirty, dull, dangerous motivator for robotics, that's Australia. It's boring here. There's nothing here. Everything's dangerous. You don't want to go outside, let alone near a machine. So when someone else goes, can you do remote ops? We're like, what do you mean? Like to our letterbox? Because generally it's about a 15-minute drive to our letterboxes. Yeah, that's just normal here. So we've actually surreptitiously introduced this concept of distance into the D, so dirty, dull, dangerous distance. If you're not from Australia, you might call it a tyranny of distance. If you're from Australia, you just call it Perth. It's a long way away and we need to operate things there because I don't want to go there either. So that was pretty interesting because that brought us into heavily into remote ops. So you see things like the Australian Space Agency and Aroa's coming up, and the sales pitch there, you know, maybe a level 2 down was there is no such concept as remote ops in Australia. That is just Australia. We are just used to controlling things 500 k's away. That's brilliant. Then something like coronavirus hits and everyone's like, well, now we need these agents working in between the people and the task because we don't want to get close to things. We've got to maintain this distance to something all the time. And we're like, semi-autonomous systems or shared autonomous systems that work remotely because of distance. We already do that. We are ready to go. We just thought that was business as usual. You want to put a coronavirus label on it, that will make sales easier, but I'm completely there. So I think just to kind of sum it up, we are really starting to unify this fragmented capability. We need to do it more and more and more. We're already starting to grow an international competitive robotics industry. We need to do that more and more and more. We still need to share networks and do more events like this, where we talk to international, just say, maybe we are what we are, but what we are is impressive. What I really need to drive home or hammer is we really need everyone's input. So a very, very simple thing. You think about the last robotics roadmap 2018, a lot of you guys had your companies in there. I want updates. I want the same case study from 2 years ago with the last 2 years of updates in it, just so we can start celebrating our successes amongst ourselves. So for instance, I remember the Amazon Picking Challenge was in that as an ACRV event. Yeah, we should have a case study in there saying that is now a company. We have now started something. We have now actually made the next step. And then we can look at ourselves. Then we can look out, go Australia.
Excellent. Thank you, Nathan. Always fantastic messaging. So well done. And it's great to see that you're cash positive and that we are getting some progress on the roadmap. I've been involved in a number of the chapters and things are moving very, very well. So, okay, in the last 5 minutes, I've just got a couple of things to share with you. Hopefully this will come up. Yep. So one of the things I just wanted to quickly do, and it just builds on what Nathan was saying. So our strategy is definitely still building that confidence to make us be able to sing our message. And we're also focusing on building capability. And then what we're hoping is once we get that visibility, we're going to need to build that capacity. So there's a bunch of activity going on to help us do that. You'll see actually over the course of the next few months some job fairs coming through. We're trying to attract some hopefully some great talent from various parts of the world, primarily due to COVID, but also primarily due to the fact that remote work is definitely become a norm. And so they're looking for where and making choices of where they want to be based. So this is a great opportunity to return to try and attract some returning Australians that are everywhere in the world, but also some key talent from some key areas. So keep a watch out for some of those job fairs. If you've got any job openings, please let me know so that we can maybe get them into some of the other job fairs. So we've got actually one for Silicon Valley Robotics later today. Then there's also some couple coming up from some of our European clusters. So you'll see a dense one and a Robo Valley one coming up. So keep an eye on those. And if you've got any job openings, please let me know. We're also doing events like this and continuing to build these connections between us all. So that's a real, I guess, key part of what we do. There is a cluster strategy that we've got open. If anybody's interested, I'll share the link. I might have done so already, so please forgive me if I have. But please jump in there and have a look. It's sort of got this 2030 vision, pretty similar to what we've just talked about with Saudi. But anyway, please jump in there. We want this to be, I want all contributions into this. I just want to highlight one of the things that Joe and I and a couple of others are working on, with regards to stimulating interest in robotics is challenges. So we've got a challenge that we're working on, which is a robotic race between Brisbane and Auckland. So it's still early days, but we're sort of targeting the Q4 2021 sort of time frame. So if anybody's interested in jumping onto the committee and helping to sort of make this happen, we're doing this in collaboration with New Zealand. New Zealand are I guess, in a really unique situation in that they're probably just as COVID-free, if not more so than Australia, even though they have gone through a second wave like everybody else. But there's some unique opportunities with New Zealand. One in particular is that they've got a leadership that seems to support clustering and support robotics. And so they have an AI, national AI strategy, and they're working towards a national robotics strategy. So this should be a lot of fun. So if anybody's interested, please let us know. The other piece, the key one that I really want to highlight is we've got a bunch of expos that are coming up and demonstrations. So I'll just go through the list. So the first one actually is not really on this list yet because it's basically this weekend. So we've got the Robo Rave happening this weekend. There's going to be a couple of us up there. We'll have BI5 with their unit. Hopefully we'll have Joe and some of ADR's robots. We'll have a bunch of banners. We'll also have the Procyon demonstrator and a couple of other social robots that can interact with the kids. The key aspect with Robo Rave is the parents are not allowed into the competition. Competition's about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, because I know you're a sponsor and you're going to be up there as well. There's about 500 students. The parents aren't allowed inside. And so they're going to be dropping kids off. They're going to be coming throughout the day. And so there's an opportunity to get them educated about the robotics industry to help them make sure that they support their child's education and hopefully pathway into our industry. The next one up is we've got essentially an expo demo day on the 9th of October. And if you remember the video from UFR, you would have seen the open field. That's where the expo is, or the demo is going to be. So we've got a number of sort of companies that are going to be there, including the racing team, student team from UQ and QUT, because they're going through a process of automating those race cars that they're building. And so that event is actually going to be, we're going to capture some material. It's also going to be useful for a test and prep day for the next day, which is the 10th of the 10th, 2020, which Amira is running the global remote operations, automation and robotics 24-hour event. And the event is essentially structured into 3 8-hour segments. So there's going to be an Asia Pacific, heavily focused with WA and Queensland, but we're hopefully to get some other companies interested and capability interested elsewhere in the country, including Korea. We got some demonstrators from Japan, and there's a couple of others that are in the mix. So there'll be a Asia Pacific essentially time zone. Then we move into the Africa Europe time zone. And we've got Odense, Robo Valley, we've got a University of Luleå, some other capability from the Scandinavian countries, and hopefully some demonstrators from South Africa. And I'm hoping that we can get some demonstrations from the site that you worked on, Joe, as part of that time zone. And then we move to the Americas time zone, where we've got some examples from Canada, US, including Silicon Valley Robotics, as well as South America. And then, so that's going to be a great event and a way to sort of advertise to the world. The next one is we've got a next Cluster Master, and I see I've got a spelling error there. We actually are going to be physical at Perigian Hub, and this is a way to get the Sunshine Coast robotics industry or robotics community engaged. But then the big one in November is the world of drones and robots. So essentially we're responsible for the expo part of it. Robotics Australia is heavily involved as well in the program, and we have some of our sister or partner clusters, Queensland Bionics, some of the other hubs will be heavily involved. The ARM hub is heavily involved. But that's Expo. So we've got a number of you already have signed up, and this is no cost for demonstration, by the way. It's so we can do whatever we want, essentially. So just to paint the picture, we've got a couple of, there'll be some dancing robots, hopefully. There'll be a couple of themed demonstrations. We're hoping to have a sort of aquatic type themed demonstration. And then there's going to be opportunities for each of the universities to also have some key demonstrators and get their students engaged, along with hopefully RoboCoast to provide an opportunity for the winning teams from this weekend. Then we've got another cluster muster. And then finally in December, we've got the automation and robotics in mining, which is going to be hosted over at University of Queensland. So again, pretty action-packed, and there's a lot going on. I've definitely gone over time. And so with that, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and well done. And it's been a fantastic to see everybody's presentations. Just so that you're aware, this has been streamed onto the YouTube channel, and it will stay there, so you can point to it, you can go and have a look at it. If you can pass on the link to anybody and encourage them to subscribe, it just helps us with the dissemination. But also, if you've got any questions, please circle back and we'll get them answered as quickly as we can. With regards to interactions with Jeffrey, we are planning some workshops in the next couple of weeks. So please keep an eye out for that, because we're basically trying to take as much advantage of the fact that Jeffrey is landlocked here in Australia. So we want to sort of maximise our engagement time with him before he heads back to Dubai. But also we have lined up in the next cluster muster, we'll have the folks from TIQ India, and there's some similar opportunities within the Indian market. Again, COVID related, but there's a whole range of other opportunities as well. So with that, thank you to all the presenters. Well done as usual. I'm super impressed with how we're progressing, and look forward to catching up with you at a later date. So thanks everybody.